Hello everyone, hope you're doing well today. As per usual, we're just letting the stream warm up. The hamsters are doing their limbering up. All the other things are happening. All I need to tell you is that we'll be here in 3 minutes time. When I say we, it is the royal we. It is me and all of you guys. Here for the Monday PotPuri. Yo, how's it going everyone? Here's hoping you like the little background music there, of course. As always, the background music is provided by the Breaks Kid, Bobby Fett. But that's not what we're here for. We're not here to listen to music. This is the first edition / episode of Stevie's Monday PotPuri. Hashtag PotPuri. I hate that word. I'm dyslexic. I've never been able to spell PotPuri. So when I named the show, I was like, you know what? I'm going to own it. I'm going to spell it the way I want to spell it. And that's it. That's it. That's the bottom line because Steve Cold said so. End of discussion. So we're here for the Monday PotPuri. Now this was an idea I had because for the longest time I've always liked doing podcasts about just random topics. It's not just one topic every week because I'm a hyperactive person. I have ADHD. I think about different things all the time. So a show where I get to talk about something different, something on my mind every week, is something I've wanted to do for a while. And here we are. We're here. We're the PotPuri. Now, hopefully I can get a camera in a place where I am happy. Maybe that's better. Yeah, that's kind of good. So we're here, the PotPuri. We'll do the intros first. It is Monday, the 11th of January. Can you believe it? We're into the double figures of January already. And already this year is batshit insane. Is it worse than 2020 already? I don't think it was worse than 2020 already, but we are getting there. You can definitely tell that it is a Monday though. Today, me waking up, my god, I feel like I only just managed to wake up about half an hour ago. You would think that I'd been frozen in carbonite overnight or something like that. I just couldn't wake up. I didn't have the blindness, thankfully, but Han Solo, I feel your pain is all I am saying. I'd like to give a hello to everyone because this show is only really going to work when people give us ideas, or when should I say give me ideas, so I can then take the ideas and channel them back towards the listeners and viewers of this show. So thanks to everyone who commented, gave us an idea, gave us some feedback for today's show, because this show will only be good with that sort of input. Unless I can get really good at hosting overnight. That would be great. And I mean, if I can change my voice so I sound a bit more southern, that would probably help too, because southern voices get viewers. Scottish voices, northeast Scottish voices, my god. Even I hate my accent, so I can understand this. It's just it's the world we live in. It is the world we live in. So let's check my notes. I did not realise that my ring light would be blasting my eyes so much that I wouldn't be able to read in my notes. So this is quite funny. Let's just get right to the topic. What is the first PotPuri show about? We are in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic. Coronavirus. Who remembers it being called coronavirus? That is like a blast from the past for me. It's like, whoa, coronavirus. I remember when we were calling it that. It seemed so dangerous, but no one cared. Now it seems very dangerous and everyone cares, except government. So today, I wanted to look at various, how do we call it? Various radical actions, radical plans, radical ideas that could have been used or could be used to stop the COVID-19 pandemic from spreading across the UK, or things that can be used now to get a control of it, because, as Matt Hancock said, they have no control over it. And so it'd be good if we had some ideas to get some sort of control of COVID-19, because let's be perfectly frank, whatever ideas have come from the UK government, and to a degree the Scots government, the Northern Irish government and the Welsh government, have been as useful as a chocolate watch in a desert. You know what I mean? It's like, I have had more useful broken bowls than I have had government's action at dealing with coronavirus. I struggle to make a metaphor, and I struggle to find a metaphor that describes how poorly our government and our leaders have done in dealing with coronavirus. Now, a big part of that, I believe, personally, is that they just don't have the ideas. They're too scared to have ideas. We have not had any radical ideas to try and do anything in terms of coronavirus. All we've really had from governments in the last year is different versions of the same thing, which is proven not to work. So let's go back. Let's go right back to the start of the pandemic. Let's think about March last year, right? So back in March last year, the first peak was starting. What did our government do to try and stop this from happening? Did they close the borders? No. Did they stop people moving around the UK between regions and cities and that sort of stuff? No. All that government done last year, well, they did a few things, but we're going to clarify it down to one or two things, because in reality that's all they are. They locked the country down, and they gave some of the country some money to stay at home, right? So the lockdown, they locked down a lot of the country. That's fair enough. And when you look at the statistics from back at the first lockdown, it did work. But there was a lot of caveats to that. There were still a lot of people out working. There was a lot of people doing things. The difference between the first lockdowns and the lockdowns we're seeing now, obviously, is that schools were closed in the first lockdown, and that made a gigantic effort. So what was the first lockdown? They basically just closed society down. We closed society. We told people not to go outside. We told people not to mingle with each other. And we told people to, if you go outside, an hour a day, but keep away from people, right? It worked. Undoubtedly, it worked. The statistics show that that sort of lockdown worked. So that was cool. Was there any radical thinking that went into the first lockdown? Really, no. All that happened was people was told to stay indoors. Now, the second part of the first lockdown, and this is the part which I feel it all started to fall apart, was the furlough scheme. Now, there was no real help for small businesses unless they had been in business for a few years. So if you just started a business at the start of the year, you were screwed. People like me, right? At that time, my personal situation back then, I was a full-time student because I was in the end of my fourth year at university, and I was working part-time as a security guard for a security firm that does events, done the tickets in the doors. You've seen them about, stewards, yellow jackets, they're all over the shop. I was one of them. Now that job, it's not you're not contracted an amount of hours every week. It is classed as a casual job. They attest, the company I worked for attest it was not a 0 hours job. They say it's a casual job. Now, because it was a casual job, and like millions of other people in the UK, when everything got closed down, including my job that I was doing, which I had a lot of hours booked for the months that were going ahead, my job got cancelled. All my hours got cancelled. We didn't get paid. I didn't get furlough. Companies like the one I was working for hid behind the furlough schemes. And in the end of the day, the only people who got furlough help were people who were already in decently paid full-time jobs. Like, we had people that are working middle management positions, 50 grand a year, getting their wages, getting thousands, getting over £1,000 a month, while others didn't. And this is the problem with the furlough scheme. It only helped some. It didn't help all. Now, there's a lot of the people there that some people got help, but people like me were like, I can't claim benefits because of my personal situation, but other people like me, they were like forced to claim benefits, and then their income goes right down to nothing. And because they've got an income that's right down at nothing again, and they're on the benefit system, they're now getting told to go for work. They've had to ignore the lockdown things. They've had to ignore, like, I've had to look for jobs. I've had to go for job interviews during this, which I think is just mind-blowingly stupid. And this is the problem. They didn't act wide enough. They only seem to be protecting those in the middle, you know? And it didn't work. It worked for so long. Like, worked for the first 3 weeks, 4 weeks, but then we were getting to the second lockdown. Now, by the time we got to the second lockdown, it becomes apparent that government at the second lockdown, they changed what was happening. So they changed the furlough, so not as much people got furlough, and those who did weren't getting as much, and the schools were now open. And as we've seen, it was an utter shit show. Nothing went right at all. And things have, since then, since the schools reopened, since Super Saturday when the pubs reopened, there's just been this constant up to where we are now. And I believe it is because our governments and our leaders have not had the balls to try anything radical. They've not tried anything remotely radical in any shape, way or form. I mean, telling people not to come out of their house, that's not radical. Like, people get told to stay in their house if there's like an emergency. Like, there's all sorts of reasons people can get told to stay in their house. Heck, you can get weather events that lead to government telling people to stay in your house. Being told to stay in your house is arguably not that radical an idea. So what is needed? This is why we're here today. I wanted to talk about radical ideas. I wanted to look at something, because I've, like, over the last year, I've thought time and time again, like, why have they not done anything ballsy? Why have they not done anything? But more to the point, what could they do? Because it's very easy for all of us to sit here in our ivory palaces and to just have ideas and say, they're doing it wrong. That's full of shit. They don't know what they're doing. But at the same time, we're not having any ideas, and we're not feeding anything back into the system. We're just spewing negativity and helping no one. So today, I wanted to try and flip this a bit, you know? I wanted to give some of my ideas. I've got radical ideas. I've got radical ideas on literally everything. But we're not going to get into that at the moment. We're just going to stick at COVID-19. So, I gave this some thought. I gave my radical ideas some thought, and I wanted to talk about radical ideas I had that I think could make things better. And because this is PotPuri, and it's not all about me, I want to mirror the views of people that are watching this around the world or in the UK or anywhere, on the moon, Mars soon. So I asked people for their opinions. I asked people for their radical ideas that we could use to pull the UK through the pandemic. And that's what we're going to look at just now. We're going to look at some bold ideas. Now, before we get into the bold idea segment of the show, I want to make a little segue to a little video that I made yesterday and I uploaded on Twitter. Now, I just wanted to quickly play this because I think it's an important message. Now, it relates to the closure of Parler and free speech on the internet in general. Please enjoy this short video while I have a quick drink of coffee. Hey everyone, how's it going? This is just a very quick video on freedom of speech. Now, you may see on the screen, where is it? There. The CEO of Parler, John Matz, has said the following. Hey everyone, how's it going? This is just a very quick video on freedom of speech. Now, you may see on the screen, where is it? There. The CEO of Parler, John Matz, has said the following. Sunday, tomorrow at midnight, Amazon will be shutting all of our servers in an attempt to completely remove free speech from the internet. There is a possibility Parler will be unavailable on the internet for up to a week as we rebuild from scratch. We prepared for events like this by never relying on Amazon's proprietary infrastructure and building bare metal products. So yeah, Amazon have announced that Parler is not going to be allowed to be hosted on their cloud servers, the AWS system. And this is the reaction from Parler. Now, I just wanted to quickly talk about freedom of speech on the internet. Freedom of speech exists. I totally agree with freedom of speech. It needs to be protected. But freedom of speech on the internet is a myth. It simply does not exist. When you sign up to, if you want to use the internet, right, you have to use your mobile phone and your data connection or an ISP. You have to agree to a terms and conditions to use either of those services. Within them, you will have conditions on criminality and hate speech. They control what is allowed to be said on the platform via their entry points. Okay. Then let's say you want to use Twitter and speak and use your freedom of speech. Well, first of all, you need to sign up to Twitter. So you'll need an email address. So you need to go to an email provider and you need to agree to their terms and conditions. Now, for Twitter, in most cases, you'll need a mobile phone. So you'll need a phone contract, which you again need to agree to terms and conditions to use. Then we get to Twitter or Facebook or even Parler for that matter, because there's no freedom of speech on Parler either. They have rules. There's a terms and conditions. For all platforms, you need to complete terms and conditions. You need to agree to their rules. Freedom of speech on the internet is a myth. It doesn't exist. This is a non-starter of an argument. It's nonsense. And there we go. It's nonsense. That was a slightly more agitated me from yesterday. Now, let's hope that, straight up, let's hope that worked on the stream, because that is one of the first times I've tried to play a video of me within a video of me. Video surrection. So let's move. See, I wanted to play that very quickly because A, I recorded it yesterday and put it on Twitter, but B, I just thought it was important. It's got nothing really to do with the topic we're away to talk about. I just think it is an important reminder to people that free speech on the internet is a myth. There's far too many people at the moment getting far too angry about this, using this weird ass trope that freedom of speech on the internet is true. It is absolutely bollocks. There's nothing. The internet is not real. The internet is hyper real. You don't see reality on the internet like me. This is a version of me. This is not me. The internet is not real. It's hyper real. And I just wanted to get that out of my chest before we go on with the topic at hand, which of course is radical ideas. It is time for us to put on our radical idea hats, and it is time for us to think our way through the COVID-19 pandemic. So how this is going to work. First of all, I'm going to read the ideas that I have had, because it's my PotPuri show. That's the name. That was my attempt at dry sarcasm. I don't know if I'm very good at it or not. I don't know. I don't know if it translates. I've got no one to bounce my bullshit off of. So I just hit and hope. But this is what I'm going to do. So we're going to talk about my radical ideas first. I'll give you an idea. I'll tell you why I think it works. I'll tell you a bit more about it. I'll then talk a bit more about it. Then we'll talk about the next one before we get on to the listener ideas. I was going to call them follow ideas, but that's quite pretentious, I thought. They are our listeners and they are our friends, more to the point. And we're going to tell you the ideas that our friends of the show have had. So let's get into this. Radical ideas. Now, radical idea one is, I've noticed that every single person that's gave me an idea for this podcast, well, almost everyone that's gave an idea for this podcast, has also gave an idea of this idea. Universal basic income. Now, I personally think this is a no-brainer. Most people I have talked to about this, and when we talk about the topic of radical ideas and things the UK could do to better fight the COVID-19 pandemic, universal basic income is the idea that always comes up constantly comes up. I think everyone's in agreement on this, that if you want people to stay at home, they need to be given at least an income. Because if they don't have an income, then they're going to have to leave the house to get an income, whether that's by signing on, by finding cash in hand work that doesn't pay tax outside of the system, or whether that's low paid work within the system that puts them at more risk of COVID. COVID-19 is a virus, right? That is an obvious fact. We all know that COVID-19 is a virus, and we all know how COVID-19 spreads. It spreads from person to person. So if I have it, I can pass it to you. If you have it, you can pass it to someone else, and so on and so forth. One of the the two main things that take people out of their house, is work and school. Like work and education. School's maybe a bit of a, that's kids. Education's the whole spectrum of people learning. Work and education. So, with education, there's simple ways to change education, and we're going to talk about that next. It's radical, but it's simple. But with work, if the two things that take people out of the house most are like work and education, you need to either give people work that they can do at home, or you need to pay them to keep them at home. Because if you don't give the people who are at home with no work money, how the hell are they going to eat or pay the electric, gas, and so on and so forth? Like, money is, whether we like this or not, money is pretty much the be all and end all of our society. You can get far with a bag full of food, you know what I mean? But once that bag full of food's gone, if you've got no money, then you will have no more food. It's just a harsh reality of life. Money is at the core of everything we do. So you need to kind of give people money to stop them moving around. And I mean, this is my view on universal basic income. Everyone else has got their own view and their own nuance in this, and I want to hear it. Like, if you've got any views coming from this show, hit us up on Twitter. Let's start a conversation about it, and let's start a bigger conversation, and hey, it might lead to a second part of this. Who knows? But my belief on UBI, like universal basic income, is that if we give people money, we can keep them at home. And it is really that simple. I wouldn't look at universal basic income as just giving people money to spend, although there is a large degree of that, because if the economy is on its arse, you need people spending money. And if people need money to spend and there's no work going around, it needs to come from somewhere. This is where a universal basic income can again help. But if you want to keep people at home, you need to pay them. Simple as that. So that's my first idea, is that a universal basic income is needed. Now, like I said, that's a no-brainer. I don't think a universal basic income is that radical idea. Sure, I think it's a big step away from the systems we live within now, but I don't think they're that radically different. I mean, what's different? Like, obviously we've got a benefit system, but why don't we just get rid of the benefit system and just pay every adult a universal basic income? Then we would not need the benefit system. Then we would not need all these people within the benefit system that do pointless jobs. You know what I mean? There's so much other sides to this that can come from it. I mean, a lot of people see universal basic income as this thing that would just cost the country lots of money. But they don't look at the other side of it. It's like, well, if there was a universal basic income, you would always need some of the benefit systems for people with disabilities and stuff, but you wouldn't need all of it. The unemployment sector, job centres and stuff wouldn't need nearly as much resources, because people wouldn't be pressured. Like, people wouldn't be threatened with having their income taken away from them if they couldn't have a job, because they wouldn't be claiming a benefit as a universal basic income. There's so much more to this than meets the eye. It's not just giving money. There's a whole lot more like systemic change that can come through a universal basic income by just eradicating the need for a large part of the welfare state, the welfare system. It's something that we could go on about, we can go all day about, we can go around in circles, but I want to hear from you about it. So yeah, if you've got any feedback on any of this or any other point I make during today's podcast / live stream, remember and head over to Twitter and tell us in our Twitter at Voice Britannia, or you can hit me up personally all the time. I'm always on Twitter at Steve Smith VB. Next up, what is on the list? Change how schools work. So my list's actually quite humble. If I take too much notes, then I'll be sitting like that, and I don't want to be like that. I'm just kind of trying to talk free and relaxed and not be too stuck to a rigid sort of plan. Words. But yeah, next up on my list of radical ideas. Now, this one is radical. So put your seatbelt on. Get ready to be taken on a radical journey into the world of radical ideas. We need to change how schools are operated. We need to end this whole schools only happen between 8 in the morning and 3 o'clock in the afternoon nonsense. That needs to go. Schools that only operate through work hours are no longer fit for purpose. This is just the way it is. Now, it's good that we've got schools closed and remote learning is being pushed more. That's awesome. Remote learning is, at the end of the day, this is one of the key things schools need to do to become safer and to be able to provide an education to children during the pandemic. And hey, there's always the point that if radical action is taken now within this situation, which is arguably one of the worst situations the country has ever faced, if they take control of this and change how we do things now and it works within this system, then it's going to work forever. It's going to work within war. It's going to work within any other pandemics. It's going to work within other emergency situations. So, whilst, obviously, Gavin Williamson's the education minister, the guy's a fucking clown. We're not going to get any change from him. So let's just think about the sort of changes we could make that would make it better. And hey, you never know. Gavin might be sitting at home, stroking his tarantula, listening to this, watching this, and he might say, "Oh, well, that's Stevie. That's had some good ideas." I doubt it, but you never know. So my biggest idea with schools, as I've already hinted to, is to change the hours that they work and to force as much school work to be remote. So, I mean, as we've got just now, school work is being done remotely for the majority of, well, they say the majority of children, but there's still around 50% of kids at school. Hey, we've got someone in the chat. What's the topic? We are talking today, I'll do this once. We are talking about radical ideas that can take control of the COVID-19 epidemic, and I am talking about schools. So yeah, schools. We need to change how they work. Thankfully, systems are, I mean, like the school. One thing I've never understood with schools is why they are so like against remote learning. I don't understand this. We live in an age where like remote learning is not just doable, it is absolutely doable. All that has to be done by the state or whatever is to make sure that everyone that's learning remotely has the tools to learn remotely, whether that be a computer or, as has been reported, a tablet. Now, if you ask me, I think it would be a lot cheaper and a lot better in the long run if you gave kids Windows laptops, like cheap Windows laptops, because if you give everyone an iPad, sure, they're getting an iPad, but it's an iPad. It is not really much use as a computer. Sure, you can do learning. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm just too stuck in the world of computers, but that's just me. But we need to take advantage of this remote learning stuff. we don't not just need to take advantage of remote learning, because remote learning is a really cool thing. Like, for instance, when I was at uni, I can only talk about this from my own university point of view because I've never done remote learning as a child. But at university, it was great. Like, if there was any issues, if I was feeling ill, if there was anything wrong, or as someone with anxiety, sometimes I just could not be arsed being in a lecture theatre full of people. The tools are there. Like, classes are recorded, notes are done. You can read everything remotely. You can watch everything remotely. And I used to take advantage of this. Like if there was some times where I was like just feeling really anxious and I was not feeling too compos mentis for going in and hanging around thousands of people in a university campus, I would sit at home and do stuff. I would be sitting watching a lecture at midnight and doing it there on my own time, and I would get a lot more from it. I would learn a lot better, and because you've got the ability to stop, go back, go forward, whatever, I just found it a lot better. Now, remote learning on its own is not the only thing we need to do here, because remote learning, yeah, it's good, but there is a reason why people go to school. Children don't go to school to learn from a computer. People, like adults, don't go to university to learn from computers or from remote systems. You need the lecturers and the teachers guiding you through the hand to a degree. And this is where my radical idea comes in, because the remote learning, again, much like universal basic income, I do not think remote learning is remotely radical. But changing the times that schools operate is radical. Now, this has happened in the world of higher education for probably decades. I don't know how long higher education has done this, but why don't we extend the times when kids' classes can happen? Like, for instance, at the moment, kids, like, when I went to school, when I went to primary school, that's a while ago, we would be there from 8:30 in the morning till 3:15 in the afternoon. Now, that's fine in a world where people are all working at the same time and there's nothing else really happening in society, but now that is just totally not fit for purpose. We've got this situation where kids are only allowed to actually go to a school building if one parent's a key worker. And this all creates so much conflicts with kids being able to be at a class at the right time or to be able to learn at the right time. And to compensate for this, I think we need to start extending the school, like the times where classes can happen in both primary and secondary school. I would say we need to get rid of this 8 o'clock till 3 o'clock nonsense. We need to just extend it. We need to take it from 8 o'clock to 8 o'clock. We need to there is a good 12-hour block of time during the day, 8 o'clock till 8 o'clock, where most, if not, well, maybe the younger children could not. Like, early primary kids couldn't do that. It's a bit late for them. But there's no reason why a kid of 10 or someone at 16 can't be doing an English class in the evening, or why they can't be doing a maths class later in the afternoon. I can't find any argument against this, especially in the remote aspect of learning makes this even more possible. Now, the other aspect that makes the changing of the times work, in my head anyway, I don't know if this could be totally batshit insane, but the way I seen it, right, you've got key workers that are being forced to put their kids to school because they've got no one to look after their kids whilst they're at work, right? We're there, yeah? So this is partly what led me into the idea of changing the times that schools are open, because if you've got classes that can happen like during a big 12-hour block of the day, then the key workers who are at home looking after their kids, or someone's looking after their kids at home while they're at work or not at work, it frees up. I just feel it would allow them better to be able to get their kid a class whilst not being at school. It's like, I believe it would help everyone remote learn, because but at the moment, like the key worker kids are not remote learning, so they're and the ironic part of that is key workers are the people that are most likely to catch the virus or to pick the virus up and to pass it around to somewhere else, which means that the kids of key workers are at slightly more risk to other people from catching the virus and spreading it. Therefore, if schools are made up at the moment of mainly key worker kids, then it stands to reason that the school environment is going to be a lot more risk. Well, maybe not a lot more, but it is going to be more risky than it was before. So the only way we can stop that is by stopping people mixing. This gets us back to what was said at the start. COVID-19's a virus. It spreads from people to people, breath to breath, air to air. If we want to stop COVID-19 spreading through society, we need to stop it spreading at every point. And it makes no sense that we leave schools open, even if it's just a school with like 10% of its pupils. That is still a group of people who have more potential because of their key worker parent status to pick up the virus and spread it to each other and spread it to other key workers. Who, remember, key workers are also the people who are in most contact with vulnerable people. This is all, it's one of these strange situations. Everything feeds into something else, you know what I mean? It's like the schools being closed feeds into key workers, it feeds into the healthcare system. And we just need to exit. We need to stop that. We need to stop schools sitting, period. Whilst there is like a lot of risk at the moment, we need to stop that from happening. So that was my bit on the schools. Now, next up on my list of radical ideas. Now, earlier today I had this conversation on Twitter. There was a couple of people that tried to spin it around. It's like, so what, you think old people should die? I mean, that's just nonsense. So, before we get to the next idea, I am not advocating that anyone dies. I will elaborate on this idea as we get into it. Vaccines. So this is a hot topic at the moment. Vaccines. I think the way government are rolling out the vaccines at the moment is ass backwards. My radical solution to the vaccines is to change who they vaccinate first. So, let me get into this a bit more. Government have started their vaccination program. They have started it with people that are shielding, with pensioners that are in care homes and stuff like that. They have started with vulnerable people. Now, it's undoubtedly a good thing. We need to protect vulnerable people. We don't need more people dying from COVID-19. But for me, I struggle to agree with the logic of vaccinating those who already interact the least with society. Because why you should be vaccinating the people that have got the most interaction with society first? No? So let's get into this. I think the people who should be vaccinated first are not people that are shielding, it's not people in care homes, it's not hospital patients, it is key workers. No one else should be done first. Key workers. They should be starting with hospital key workers, then hospital and care home key workers first, and then spreading out from there. As much as we need to protect vulnerable people, a lot of the vulnerable people that we are needing to protect are already living in forms of isolation. Like old people in care homes, they live in care homes. As long as we can, if the systems that were in place to look after people in care homes or any of that were fit for purpose and being operated correctly, then they should be statistically at the least risk of catching COVID-19. Although, as we can see now, this is not the case. COVID-19 is still spreading through care homes. Now, why is that? This is because people are taking it into care homes. Key workers are catching the virus in their care home, or they're catching it at home. Remember, Christmas just happened, so there's that. And to a degree, it doesn't matter what you do in care homes, because if people outside it, if all the people working in a care home are not vaccinated, and they're still going in and out of the care home, and they can get the virus and then take it in, or get it and have a mutation, take it in. It kind of makes whatever they're doing to protect the old people pointless. And like, it just seems to me that you're not. It's almost like they're leaving gaps for the virus to get in, and it's a bit silly. I don't I and I don't mean this to come across as cold-hearted in any way, because I've got pensioner grandparents and stuff like that, and I think they should all get the vaccine, and everyone should get it at the end of the day. But we need to focus on key workers. Then we need to focus on people between 18 and 50. We need to focus on giving vaccinations to the people who can get and keep society up and running. And this is not meant as some sort of heartless topic or anything bad like that, but it's a straight up fact. It's like, at the moment, government is trying to prioritise pensioners and old people and people in care homes. And while that's really good, and every life saved is a life saved, it is arguable that by doing this, we're not getting society up and running quick enough. Like, government keep talking about the economy and getting the economy back going and getting workers back to work and all this sort of stuff. But at the same time, workers are like right at the bottom of the importance list when it comes to vaccines and stuff like that. And the people that are not going to get society back up and running are at the top. I just feel that if we could get the care workers, the people that are looking after the people that are most at risk, if we can get them fully vaccinated and safe, not just one jab, but both vaccinations, and have them isolated off in a rational and like just a sensible way, we would protect people in care homes better than we're doing just now. Because at the moment they're vaccinating people in care homes, yet people in care homes are still catching the virus. That to me says whatever plan they are following is not working. So yeah, that is my radical idea for vaccines. Stop the way you're rolling it out. Give it to key workers first. Key workers in hospitals, care homes, post days, all that sort of stuff. Then work your way out from there. Start at the key, then slightly less important jobs, like key workers, then shop workers, that sort of stuff. Vaccinate the people who keep society up, running, and making money. Because that is what's going to do the country more service in the long run. We need to get society back up and running again, and we can't do that if we're not vaccinating the people who run society. So that was pretty much all of them. That's pretty much. I did have a few other radical ideas, but the fact is, if I told you all the radical ideas I had, then I probably wouldn't have any to say from our viewers, because our listeners and our friends of the podcast have also had some cracking ideas, and that's what we're going to get into in just a second. So before we get into the follower ideas, I'm just going to take a very quick break, and we'll be right back. Okay, that's better. I do apologise about that. I just had to run to the bathroom. What do you call it, by the way? If you're trying to be polite, do you say, I have to go to the toilet, I have to go to the bathroom, or I have to just to do something? What do you say? Tell me. This is a discussion that I was having with someone just a few days ago. And it was fun that different people say different things when they need to spend a penny. Some people like to be more polite than others. And it came to pass that I have the manners of, I don't know, I just don't really have I don't have a high level of etiquette. I need to have more etiquette. I need to develop more etiquette. I think I need to go to finishing school. Finishing school would probably be something that wouldn't hurt in the long run. So, rather than me laughing at my own foibles, let's get into some of the radical ideas we have been sent by our listeners and friends. So first up, the first idea I'm going to read up comes from Voice Britannia contributor, very good writer, Mike Stafford. That is at Faithful Pundit on Twitter. Now, you might have read Mike's writing for us before. I won't blow smoke up his ass just now. Go to the Voice Britannia site and you can read loads of stuff he's written in the past. He's a very good writer and he's wrote some great content for the site. That said, let's look at one of Mike's radical ideas. Now, I thought this one was really cool because it's radical. It's new. No one's had an idea like this before. And I was like, yes, this is exactly what we're wanting. Mike believes that we should treat COVID-19 like the weather. We should treat reports on COVID-19 like weather forecasts. And he says to bolt the case updates at the end of news reports, like we do weather reports. And I thought that was just I thought it was a great idea. A, it's one of the most original ideas I've had. And B, it really would help. Sorry, I'm playing with my hat. It really would help people know what things are like in their area, how safe their area is. Not to give them a false sense of security if they were safe, but just to be straight up and be honest and transparent about what's happening with the virus in the area you live. At the moment, if you want to get that, you have to go to the government's dashboard website, which, as we know from our almost a year of following the dashboard, now, like, I've been literally following data on that since last January. No shit. But yeah, as we know, the data on the government dashboard is not always the most transparent. It's not always the most up to date. And to be honest, sometimes they're not that honest. So to get like a really straight up weather report and a really transparent, localized update for COVID-19 in your region at the end of every news report, or at least on like BBC news report, so it's at least coming from the States to a degree, I think that would be a great idea. I think that would be an absolutely great idea. Mike, that was a quality idea. That was definitely a radical idea, and I think it's a radical idea that Boris should be listening to. Boris. Next up, let's go to one of our bros off the stream. Debate bro. Nah, he's not a debate bro. He came up with that name. It's a term I love. Debate bro. He is not a debate bro, man. His name is Sinan Kosei, the man that comes and helps host the PMQs every so often. Now, Sinan has had a radical idea, which I like. He says, a universal basic income with a national food distribution service tailored to the needs of people. National food distribution service. Again, much like Mike's idea, this one floored me. So I was like, shit, why the hell did I not think like something like that? Like, people need food. This is why a universal this is why so many people put universal basic income at the front of their radical ideas to help get the country through COVID, because it's a no-brainer. People need to eat. If people don't have money, they can't eat. And that's all they want. People just need to... At the end of the day, the main drive us humans have is to stay alive. And we do that by eating, drinking, dicking around with people. You know, people things. And one of the most important people things we do is food. We need to eat. And yeah, I just thought that was a great idea, because if there's one group that should be able to control the nation's food to a degree, and to get food to people without them having to worry about it, or without them having to go to like a food bank or anything like that, because as common as they are, it's still quite a degrading thing to have to go to the queue and admit, I can't afford food, I've got to queue for it. So I thought that was a really good idea, a national food distribution service, and have it tailored to the needs of people. So we're not just expecting everyone to live on beans, rice, and whatever. If people are celiacs, they can have gluten-free stuff. If people are diabetic, they can have sugar-free or full of sugar, whichever they need. I'm not I don't know this. I don't know diabetics, but you get the drift. If you're allergic to something, you don't get it. This could be done. This could be done. Like, universal basic income, not that radical. Well, we don't think it's that radical, although we are socialists, so we always think that's not that radical. But a national food distribution service, definitely radical, but why has government not thought of this before? Like, the uptake of food bank use and stuff like that, even before COVID, was getting out of control. So maybe, pandemic or not, a national food distribution service is something government should possibly be considering. Sinan, great idea that. Next up, sanitary nap time. Now, you may have seen sanitary nap time on Twitter, and I believe he's part of the podcast is Praxis series, and he's appeared on Sinan's channel a few times. I was on a show with him on Sinan's channel before, I believe it was Keir Starmer Duncan session, and it was really funny. You should go and check his stuff out. He's a funny guy. But his radical idea, now this was I like this one because it was kind of funny, but at the same time there's a grain of truth to it. At this point, we might as well have tried getting the army to weld folk into their houses for a month. It would have probably worked better. Now, we laugh. We're like, welded into houses. That's a bit insane. But he is right. It probably would have worked better. Is it radical? Yes, it is. It's probably the most radical idea I've seen yet. Which is why I wanted to do it. I wanted to do one that just had a bit of fun to it. That said, though, now, you'll have to look on Twitter and look for the videos yourself, or look on Google. Just type into Google, China, COVID-19, build wall on road. And there's quite a few videos of this going about. The Chinese don't just block areas off. They don't just tell people not to go into an area. They are literally building brick walls on the middle of roads, so people can't drive in and out of towns. It is insane. It's insane, but it works. You know? I mean, this is one of the I guess it's one of the few positives of being a hardline communist dictatorship. If you want to close a city down, you close that city down. No one is arguing with that or to get thrown to jail. I don't agree with that, by the way. I don't think people should be doing that. I don't agree with that sort of heavy-handed bullshittery. As much as I'm a socialist, I am quite a libertarian as well. Not in the bad way, but in the I think that people deserve freedoms way. Next up, another friend of the show, Jane Pickering. Jane, it's good to have your comments here, and I hope you have received your mug now. Jane has told us she would like to see a public information campaign that tells the truth about how people become infected and what's going on in hospital. Exactly. Transparency is, I would say transparency is one of the few things people are not just asking for, but they're crying out for it. We deserve to know what's happening. Like, a public information campaign that tells the truth. Yes. Like, the irony is, the government's COVID-19 dashboard is the government's idea of a public information campaign that tells the truth about COVID-19. But as we've known, they don't. It's lagged and it's flawed. And if they really wanted to, they could remove 500,000 cases and say, "Oh, sorry, we used the wrong Excel spreadsheet that day. We've made a mistake." And there's nothing we can do to question that. We have just got to accept that at face value. And it's all down to the way information's been spread and how people have been told. They were never, like, for instance, like Jane talks about telling the truth about how people become infected with COVID-19. That should have been done from the very start, but the simple fact is it wasn't. Back in March, now, you can go back and check this yourself. It still blows my mind that it happened. In March, we had America's CDC camera. The CDC was telling people, wear a mask, wear a face covering. And you might remember people were just being pedantic as fuck about, oh, it's a mask, oh, it's a face covering. It's like, regardless, the CDC and the WHO were telling people to cover their faces up to stop COVID-19 spreading, right? They said why to do it, they said how to do it, they showed you how to make masks, they showed it, and they spread it around. The response from our government was that our government had their Deputy Chief Medical Officer, Jenny Harris, go on national TV and tell people that wearing a mask could produce a higher risk of catching COVID-19 because, as she said directly, the germs can get behind the mask, trapped behind the mask, and cause you to get COVID-19. Now, what's worse about that is that her advice on masks was, there's a doctor on BBC TV, now you'll notice him, he always sits with like a fake radio station behind him, his name's Chris. He spread that to the public. He told his listeners and people on the BBC that what she says about masks is right and masks create more dangerous. Sarah Vine, you know, the doctor that you often see on Lorraine, on this Lorraine Jeremy Vine show, she's like one of the mainstream media doctor type characters. She was repeating that as well. She was repeating Jenny Harris's bullshit that masks produce more of a risk. I think it was maybe a month later that they all stopped doing that and they were all telling people to wear masks. And this gets back to Jane's point. If people were told how people become infected and how to stop getting infected, a lot less people would have caught this freaking virus. Fact. Deep breath, because that one actually gets me annoyed. I am still annoyed about that bullshit with Jenny Harris and all those other healthcare professionals that were telling us literal pseudo-help. Like, I won't call it pseudoscience because it wasn't pseudoscience, but they, for whatever reason, felt that they had to disagree with other experts, even though those experts were trying to tell us how to protect ourselves against a flipping virus. Next up, an idea from another friend of the show and a good friend of mine. It is Sally Dukin. She has said, not exactly radical, but monitoring who comes in and out of the country a year ago would have been a good start. We are an island. This could have been contained. I absolutely agree. You will not hear any disagreement with me on any part of that comment. She is absolutely right. The UK is an island, right? We have control of our borders now. Even before Brexit, we had control of our borders. We could close the borders. We could stop people coming in if we thought they were a risk to our health. But they didn't, right? At the first end of the year, during the summer, like Grant Shapps, Boris Johnson, Rishi Sunak, they should have closed the borders Boris should have closed the borders in February. Like I said earlier, this was not a surprise. Like, I was tracking this from January when it was starting on. The government's website was tracking this in January and February. So there's no excuse from government that they didn't see this coming or they didn't know. It was common knowledge that this virus was happening. It was a big risk and it was coming towards the UK. It was literally just creeping across. It was like it hit one country. It was like, oh man, here we go. Then it hit Italy. Then it hit France. Then Spain. It was like, it's just coming. It's like we're just watching it going from country to country to country coming to us until it did, because nothing was done to close borders. And that's only half of this bullshit. Because after the first peak, during the first peak and after the first peak, the borders were still open. People were still flying in and out of the country. People could still travel from any bit of the country to any bit of the UK to any other bit of the UK. And then summer comes, and at that point, all of our air borders should be closed. We should not have been letting anyone in and out of the country without a 14-day quarantine, without being properly tested, quarantined, before being set free into British society. Like Sally says, we are an island. We don't have, like, the UK doesn't have any land borders with anyone. The only physical way into the UK from any other continent is the Channel Tunnel. So, and that's a train tunnel. You can't walk through there or drive through there. It's all controlled, strictly controlled. We could have controlled this. But yeah, we didn't control the first wave. And then summer came. And Grant Shapps, for some reason, decided that, you know what, we need to keep the borders open. Summer, people need to go on their summer holidays, god damn it. And tourist companies, well, they've got to keep making their summer holiday profits, even though there's a pandemic on. And what happened? Well, during the summer in Spain, there was a mutation. COVID-19 mutated into a more virulent form, the name 208.EU1. Now, that happened, I think it was in July, that strain was detected in July. Then between August and September, that strain came to the UK with the people who were going on their holidays. Tourists brought the new version in. And it was that second strain that triggered the second wave. And that, I mean, to this day, from the stats I have seen, 208.EU1 is still the most dominant strain at the moment. It is still, like, government talk about this other variants and the other strains and the mutations, but the fact is, well, the fact last week and the week before, I don't know now, is that it was only in the south of England that those were really being detected with any sort of real frequency, and that the most dominant strain is still the 208.EU1 strain. And then now we're in a situation where either 208.EU1 has mutated into an even more virulent strain, or something else has, again, because people are not being stopped moving around. There's been no way to contain the virus. We've not tried to contain it. And just simply stopping people coming in, monitoring the borders, controlling what was happening, what was coming in and out of the island, would have not just been a good start, as Sally says, it would have been the best course of action. If we'd done that and we really exploited the fact that the Britain is an island, I mean, obviously this would have needed a semi-functioning test and trace and isolate system, but we could have isolated the virus. We could have marginalised the virus. The only way you can get control of a virus is by divide, conquer, marginalise. You have to find it, you've got to divide it away from people that don't have it, you've got to contain it, you've got to marginalise that virus till it dies. You've got to treat it like a war. That virus needs to be killed out. Because it's not until viruses are killed out that they stop being a threat. This is not something that ever happened in our country. Because at the first hurdle we fell. The first hurdle for the UK was to protect ourselves and contain ourselves from the virus. We failed. The people that run this country simply did not care about it. Now, Sally says, not exactly radical. I kind of agree. It's not the most radical ideas. It's a common sense idea. It should have happened though. But no, great response there. Great response. Next up, John Stanley. Shut the borders for a start. Stop telling lies about almost anything they've done. Yes. Absolutely yes. So I mean, like, John Stanley's tweet just comes into it just plays into what Sally just said, and it plays into what June just said a few messages ago. Oh, sorry, June. Sorry, June. These are common sense things that should have been done, but they didn't. So we've got two more. We've got two more to read out, and then we're done today. KR. Now, KR runs a group that we're in a Discord, so we got this through Discord. My dyslexia just falls. His name just kills my dyslexia. I have got no idea why. His name is a nemesis to me. Klezmer Rouge. Is that right? Please tell me if I've said your name right, because when I read it, it just blows a fuse in my head. I don't know why. But KR says UBI is an obvious one. No industry other than actual essentials for 3 months or so should be operating, which again I agree with. Pay people to stay at home. And he sums up what he says there with, we won't need authoritarian management of what happens if people have the right incentives to stay home. Yes. As you can see, he gets into UBI and stuff like that, and we all agree. This is why I keep saying universal basic income seems to be one of the the dominant ideas that people believe will help us through the pandemic. And I can't find any disagreement with that. The only people that seem to disagree with universal basic income are people that just want to turn and say, oh, it's some sort of commie idea. It's like, tell you what, mate, if communist ideas mean we save society and people don't go hungry, I'm actually for that. Am I a communist? No. Am I? Hell. But would I do things like that if I felt they were going to do best for society as a whole? Fuck yeah. Fuck yeah. You'd have to be stupid not to. You'd have to be stupid or just one of the most selfish people on the planet not to see how that could be a good thing. And lastly, we have got Colin. So Colin responded on Discord as well. And he says what KR says, but also MMT to explain why there won't be any real need to worry about the debt. You might also want a quick dip into a discussion about deferred demands a la war bonds. Now that is actually a good idea. War bonds are not something I know a massive amount of, but things like that can help. And he talks about debt. Debt, not just for a person, but in business debt at the moment, is probably one of the biggest, is going to be one of the biggest things that wreck people's life after the pandemic. And that just reminds me that I did actually have one more thing I wanted to talk about in my list of radical ideas. So thank you, Colin, for helping me remember the big idea. The big idea. Government needs to use legislation to freeze rents on all business properties, all commercial properties, all residential properties, everything. The need to pay and collect rent needs to be frozen with law for a year. Now, that is radical. Why do I say that? I say that because, as Colin says, one of the main things what Colin alludes to is one of the things that's going to wreck people's lives most after this is debt. One of the things that's putting businesses under at the moment is the fact that they can't run their businesses, yet they still have to pay rent and business rates and all that sort of stuff. So if you can't operate your business and your rent is like $5,000 a month, you're fucked. Your business is going under. Government needs to take control of this, right? Government controls law, right? They can make law. We have a government at the moment who has a huge majority, and they can essentially make any law they want because that's how our democratic system works. So why is our system not putting a freeze on rent for everyone? Put a freeze on rent, put a freeze on council tax, put a freeze on business rates. Stop this. Like, we've got a really strange situation going on here where we know that most businesses can't run properly just now, yet everyone behind the businesses are still trying to collect all their money, rents, everything. It's fucking insane. So yeah, freeze all rents. And that, I think, everyone, is one massive blast of radical ideas out of our system. We can breathe now. So that was good. Personally, I don't think anyone will ever do any of these radical ideas. I don't think any radical idea we have will be taken up by our government or anyone close to government, for the simple reason that it is not their idea. And they don't care about our ideas, they just want to use their own ideas. So, fingers crossed. How do we go forward with this? How do we push for radical ideas? This is maybe a topic for another show, because I just don't know. What I think we've got to do is, we just need to focus. We need to, rather than just moaning about things that are going wrong and things being done wrong and things that we feel are just shit, why don't we start trying to solve the problems? Let's stop talking about the problems. Let's focus on solutions. Let's think about how we can fix things, and let's spread that feeling of like, we can do this. Let's tell the people, let's have ideas. Let's tell our politicians ideas. Let's have our ideas and put them on social media so the world can hear our ideas. Because the simple fact is, if the UK doesn't start having big ideas, if Boris Johnson doesn't start having big ideas, and if Matt Hancock doesn't start having a clue about how to do his job, then this country is screwed. Right? Today, we're going to see over 1,000 deaths reported there. I don't know what it is yet. We just know it's going to be over 1,000. It could probably be closer to 1.5 thousand. These stats are just going to keep going up. Like, we've got another 2 weeks at least of these stats going up, because we've got another 2 weeks until the effects of the lockdown come into play. And we've got to remember that much like the second lockdown, this third lockdown is not going to work properly, because they're doing it with a tier system, which is proven not to work. So things are just going to get worse. And the only people I think that can start making a difference is us, by forcing difference, by thinking about different ways, thinking about radical solutions, and pushing them to the people that run this country, telling them to look, get off your high horse, try something different, because this country needs saved. So everyone, thank you very much for tuning in today. I hope this has been a nice, enjoying listen of a podcast. Remember and come back next Monday. I don't know what next Monday's PotPuri is going to be about. This is the beauty of Stevie's Monday PotPuri. It can be about literally everything and anything, but it will only work with your feedback. So please follow me on Twitter at Steve Smith VB. Remember and follow the official Voice Britannia channel, because that's where you'll get the most updates about this. That's at Voice Britannia on Twitter. Follow us on Twitch. Follow us on YouTube. Follow us wherever you see this. Give us a follow and check it out. Leave us a comment. Tell us what you think. Head over to Twitter. Feedback, and we'll get you mentioned on next week's show. And yeah, let's do this. Let's make the Monday PotPuri something good. Because that's all I want to do, is something good. So I'll be back on Wednesday, because we have the return of Prime Minister's questions. So this will be fun. For the next few weeks at least, or whilst lockdown is a thing, I will be on my own for Prime Minister's questions. Sinan Kosei will not be with me because, well, lockdown means that people have to work at home, and people working at home means that he doesn't have the space to stream when we would normally stream for PMQs. So hopefully this is over quite soon and we can get back to doing what we've done. If anyone else wants to come on, if there's anyone listening to this that thinks, you know what, Steve, I'd like to come on and chat with you about PMQs is on, we could have a good laugh, we could make this entertaining, hit me up on Twitter, hit me up on whatever you fucking want, give us a shout and we'll do it. You can come on, you can have a little box like me, you can have a little box with a red outline, and we can laugh at PMQs. But for me today, I'm going to get a coffee, I'm going to sort my throat out because it is starting to get hoarse, and I'll see you all later. Have a lovely day.